My elder sister was caught in an affair and trapped in a raging fire. I exerted every ounce of strength to rescue her. Yet, fearing her infidelity would be exposed, she turned on me and falsely accused me of setting the blaze. The mistress screamed that I had murdered my elder sister, my heart deserving death. To protect her, father demanded I atone with my life. Even the third prince, whom I'd rescued alongside her, forced me to confess willingly, begging for a proper burial. Confess my ass. Furious, I plunged a hairpin into the third prince's throat, demanding he repay the life I'd saved. And for the crime of attempting to assassinate a prince, the entire Marquis' household was sentenced to execution. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the moment before my elder sister was trapped in the fire. Recalling her passionate affair with the third prince, I wisely locked the door for them, allowing them to become a pair of lovers truly united by fire. The third prince and I have matters to discuss. Wait here for me. Dare utter a word, and I'll skin you alive. Get lost! When my elder sister, Yin Fangfei, pushed me aside just as she had in my past life, ignoring all warnings to meet the third prince in the abandoned courtyard, I finally realized I had been reborn. Reborn on the very day of my grandmother's birthday banquet. On this very day in my past life, my elder sister Yin Fangfei had similarly ignored warnings, insisting on meeting the third prince in that abandoned courtyard. Yet she had already been bestowed by His Majesty upon the fourth prince as a secondary consort. Such an act was tantamount to placing the family's future and everyone's heads on the chopping block. Knowing her affection for the third prince, a man of noble bearing and gentle grace, and aware of their secret, intimate exchanges, father feared she might succumb to passion tonight and cause a scandal. He ordered me and her wet nurse to follow her closely, intending to prevent her private meeting with the third prince. Yet she dismissed the wet nurse, claiming her dress had gotten wet and needed changing. Then, without a backward glance, she dashed toward the deserted courtyard. When I desperately tried to stop her, she lashed out with 2 vicious slaps across my face, then threatened me with self-harm. She declared that if I dared to obstruct her, she would slash her own face and frame me for her injury, making my life a living hell. Caught between a rock and a hard place, I dared not intervene further. With triumph in her step, she strode into the abandoned courtyard without looking back. With a loud slam, the heavy wooden door locked me, the unwanted intruder, out in the cold. Yet barely a moment passed before flames flickered within the courtyard. My elder sister's reckless sighs turned into panicked screams, each cry more urgent than the last. Fearing she and the third prince might meet disaster, leading father to flame me alive and bring ruin upon the entire Marquis' household, I scrambled over the wall outside the gate. Only then did I see that, lost in passion, they had knocked over an oil lamp. The tongue oil flared up, engulfing half the room and completely blocking their escape. Both were disheveled, screaming in terror, utterly flustered. In desperation, I soaked my cloak in water from the lotus basin and plunged into the flames, intent on rescuing them one by one. But those heartless, venomous creatures snatched my cloak to wrap themselves, bolted from the inferno, and abandoned me. When help finally arrived, fearing their affair would be exposed, they falsely accused me of starting the fire. Rescued by servants, I lay half-burned, writhing in agony, barely clinging to life. Yet Yin Fangfei, clad only in her undergarments, huddled beneath my cloak, weeping bitterly. I knew you Ellen, had feelings for the third prince. But your mother was born of lowly stock and died in disgrace. How could she ever be worthy of His Highness? I only tried to reason with you, urging that your personal desires must not bring shame upon our Marquis' household. Yet you harbored such hatred that you sought to burn me alive. I am your elder sister, how could I ever harm you? How could you be so viciously cruel? Had the third prince not risked his life to save me today, I doubt I could have fulfilled my filial duty to my parents any longer. At the mistress's signal, the entire courtyard of servants stepped forward to plead for the eldest daughter's innocence. In their quest for justice, they deliberately recounted in detail all the wicked deeds I had allegedly committed against my legitimate elder sister. The venomous snake hidden in the eldest sister's bedding, the centipede quietly placed in her teacup, the tiny needles concealed in her garments, all were supposedly my heinous deeds. Yet in truth, each and every one was an act of bullying and humiliation inflicted upon me by Yin Fangfei. The entire courtyard of guests, hearing only one side of the story, declared me wicked-hearted. They looked down on my suffering, worse than death itself, and cursed me, saying I deserved it all. The mistress spared no effort in playing the victim before others, denouncing me for plotting to murder my elder sister, a crime deserving death, and claiming my disfigurement in the fire was my own fault. Even my father, who knew the truth, feigned heartbreak to protect my elder sister's reputation and the Marquisite's future. He urged me to stop disgracing myself, declaring that since my reputation was already ruined, I should cease my futile struggles and simply die to atone, sparing the Marquisate some dignity. The third prince, whom I had rescued, sat beside me with the air of a hero who had saved someone from the flames. He sighed, pressuring me to confess voluntarily to ensure I received a proper burial. Looking at my face, scorched beyond recognition because he had snatched my cloak from the fire, he shook his head repeatedly. Seeing you like this gives me nightmares. How could I possibly favor you? Confess, Yun Yuli. This is your fate for not knowing your place. Confess my ass. Filled with utter hatred, I drew my hairpin and thrust it with all my strength, fast, precise, and deadly, into his neck. The moment blood spattered, a blade pierced my chest. We fell together into a pool of blood, both our eyes frozen in disbelief, our last breaths exhaled simultaneously. Let him repay the dog's life I saved from the flames. But the crime of assassinating the sole heir of the Empress, that is unforgivable. The Empress, learning that her elder sister had secretly seduced the third prince, bringing this catastrophic downfall upon him, was consumed by rage. She ordered the entire Marquis' household to be executed. I could not contend with power that obscured the heavens, nor outmaneuver their shameless collusion, nor stand against the treacherous heart of a Marquisate. All I could do was drag them all down with me in my broken state. Yet, unexpectedly, I returned. Watching Yin Fangfei lock the courtyard gate without hesitation, just as she had in my past life. A faint smile touched my lips. I touched my swollen cheek, hatred simmering beneath the surface, and walked to the locked gate. Recalling her and third Prince Wei Hang's burning passion, I tactfully added another copper lock to the gate, ensuring they could become a pair of utterly fiery lovers. After tugging on the thumb-thick iron chain to ensure the lock binding Yin Fangfei and the third prince's fate wouldn't be easily undone, I flung the key over the wall and turned without hesitation toward the lake. They brought this upon themselves. They deserved to suffer worse than death. But I, having been reborn, should grasp my future and live well. At this very moment in my past life, Li Yueying, the third prince's cousin, daughter of the Minister of Revenue, rushed after him upon seeing him enter the inner courtyard. After circling the lake in vain, she arrived at the gate of the abandoned courtyard. The moment she saw me, her gaze turned icy. "Is it you again who lured my cousin here?" Seeing no one around, she shed her usual gentle facade. Gritting her teeth, she struck me hard across the face. "You lowly slave, born even more vile than a common servant. Using that filthy face of yours to seduce my cousin into visiting the Marquis' mansion daily, just like your whore of a concubine who sleeps with 1,000 men." Gripping my jaw, she sneered triumphantly, "I'd love to see if my cousin would scold me if I smashed this face of yours." With that, she drew a sharp hairpin and pressed it against my cheek. I lowered my eyes in silence, but within my sleeve, a dagger had already slipped silently into my palm. In the blink of an eye, I had already thought through my motive for silencing her and where I would bury her. At that critical moment, her personal wet nurse hurried over. "Young miss, the lady summons you." Spotting me pinned by her sharp hairpin, the matron frowned. "This is the Marquis' residence. Even if she's treated as a maid, she remains a concubine's daughter of this house. For the sake of reputation, young lady, think twice." Li Yueying reluctantly released her grip, yet not before tapping my cheek with the hairpin as a warning. "My cousin is not someone you should covet. If I hear of you courting him over tea, horseback riding, or archery again, I'll make sure you meet the same fate as your mother." "I'll spare your face for now," Li Yueying vowed, "but mark my words, within 3 months, I'll make her skin crawl." She strode away, leaving me drenched in sweat, chilled to the bone. Beauty becomes original sin when powerless. My mother bore it, and now I do. This lifetime, I refuse to be a lamb led to slaughter. Knowing Li Yueying sought her beloved cousin alone by the lake, I ensured they remained inseparable, wallowing together. Hidden in the shadows beneath a tree, I pounced unexpectedly from behind as she hurried past, plunging her into the lake. Splash! With no one around, her splash, her screams, her panic, only I, hidden in the shadows, knew. Only when she grew exhausted and the nanny was about to catch up did I dive into the lake. Saving her was real, but punishing her was real too. A weak woman like me couldn't pull her out, couldn't drag her. As I dragged her struggling body across the lake bottom, smashing her against rocks, I accidentally broke her finger, accidentally gouged her back, accidentally sliced her thigh. Fair enough, right? Her body was covered in wounds, and the excruciating pain only made her struggle more violently. But she was gripped by the collar of her back neck, choked to the point of near death. As she fought desperately to push me away, the water choked her even worse. Once, when she strained with all her might, I deliberately loosened my grip. Half her face slammed straight into the rockery, and her entire body fell utterly still. A faint scent of blood drifted toward me. I suspected her face was ruined, and she'd fainted from the agony. She believed her elder sister's lies to cover her own shameful deeds, framing me for seducing the third prince. Even as I knelt begging for mercy, even as I pleaded my case 1,000 times, she refused to relent. She colluded with my elder sister to make me hold scalding hot tea, burning my hand with blisters. She forced me to stand guard in a thunderstorm, leaving me gravely ill. She even compelled me to kneel and eat, bite by bite, pastries so vile even dogs would refuse them. Even the only maid who truly cared for me was driven by them to jump into the lake to retrieve a hairpin, never to rise again. When I dared to resist, she and my elder sister slandered me before our mother and father. I endured confinement, starvation, and even a brutal beating that left me bedridden for half a month. The memory of her despicable, haughty demeanor makes my teeth grind with fury. I am not like her. In her past life, she waited for the right moment to disfigure me. But I, lacking opportunity, create it myself. I must seize the sweet vengeance of this very moment. Enduring humiliation only led to a miserable death. So in this life, let them blame me for my wickedness. I hoisted her body and slammed it against the rockery again and again, until her limbs went limp and no good flesh remained. Only then did I relent. To be utterly mad, how utterly satisfying. It was something the me of last life, always manipulated and compromising, could never have imagined. The sheer exhilaration made me smile triumphantly in the pitch-black depths. After venting my fury, I remembered my purpose. Dragging the battered body, I finally surfaced, gasping for air as I collapsed on the shore. When her nanny arrived with a lantern, I managed a faint whisper, "Save. Save her!" By the time the crowd she summoned hauled us both out, Li Yueying was already a bloody mess. I feigned exhaustion, lying on the ground, yet choked out with guilt-ridden emotion. Miss Li misunderstood me. Knowing I was saving her, she struggled too fiercely, and it's also my fault for being useless, wanting to save her but lacking the strength. I inadvertently revealed the scrapes on my arms, the claw marks on my neck, and even my knees were bloodied. Fortunately, Li Yueying had often picked fights with me before. Seeing my injuries, everyone assumed she'd refused my help and caused these wounds while struggling to break free during my rescue attempt. In the pitch-black darkness, with nothing visible underwater, colliding with the rockery and sustaining such severe injuries was understandable. Some even spoke up in my defense. Miss Yun plunged into the water alone, risking her life to save another. That alone shows admirable courage. Clinging on despite her injuries, she dragged the person back to shore. Few young ladies in the capital could have done that. Truly exceptional. Without Miss Yun's rescue, the consequences would have been unimaginable. Saving someone from such peril, she's a true heroine, proving women can be just as capable as men. Li Yueying opened her eyes to find herself covered in wounds and her face half disfigured. Yet the very person she despised most had become the heroine of the lady's tales, enough to make her spit out a mouthful of old blood. If she then learned her beloved cousin had suffered the same fate, her agony would surely surpass death. At this thought, I nearly burst out laughing. Only when I saw the flames leap up from the abandoned courtyard did I curve my lips in satisfaction before fainting away. Undoubtedly, the hammer of fate meant for Yun Fangfei had now struck her instead. And this time, I, who had always been her scapegoat, could do nothing to help. When I awoke, I heard the news of the fire at the abandoned courtyard. I shoved the most valuable jade ring into the hand of the maid leading the way and impatiently demanded, "How is the young mistress?" Only when she saw no one around did she quietly tell me. The eldest young mistress and the third prince pursued the thieves to the abandoned courtyard. They were trapped inside by the thieves, who then set it ablaze. The flames ravaged both the eldest lady's body and the third prince's. Poor third prince, his path to the eastern palace is surely cut off now. Though the thieves were hanged, the Empress Dowager's fury raged, threatening to descend upon the Marquis's estate. Seeing the eldest lady's pitiful state, the lady of the house fainted and has yet to regain consciousness. The Marquis, besieged by troubles both within and without, is utterly overwhelmed. Hearing my enemies suffer so, I feel somewhat better. Everyone in the capital is sharp as a tack. How could they not know what a man and woman alone in a secluded courtyard were up to? Catching thieves? Did the Marquis's servants all die? Or did the third prince's guards vanish? Going in without a single servant and locking the courtyard gate from the inside, anyone could figure out what was happening. The high-born ladies who once loudly accused me of coveting the third prince suddenly saw the light. Whenever I invited the third prince for tea, flower viewing, or horseback riding, wasn't my elder sister, Yin Fangfei, always present? And the one secretly spreading rumors about my ill intentions toward the third prince was none other than my elder sister, Yin Fangfei. Her false image of gentle grace and virtuous propriety was instantly torn to shreds. Such a hypocrite, who betted others and brought utter disgrace upon her family, and she dared aspire to be a model noble lady? She could only dream. Father, of course, had considered all this. To spare his legitimate daughter future trouble, he even shielded her face with his cloak the moment she was dragged, half-naked, from the flames. All he needed was for me to take the fall, to bear the shame in her place. But before the fire was fully extinguished, a servant rushed in with news. "Master, it's terrible. Miss Lee fell into the water. Though Miss Yuellen saved her, she's covered in blood and unconscious. The Lee family carriage has already left the estate. They demand an explanation from you tomorrow." With that, the plan to substitute one for the other was ruined. Many women by the lake saw me carried away, soaked through and covered in blood from the scrapes on my arms. Beneath his cloak, the daughter he was crying out to wake up could only be Yin Fangfei. My elder sister truly suffered a terrible fate. Her reputation ruined, her body crippled, she'd likely become an outcast of the family. Our sisterly bond was deep, so naturally I rushed to see her, to witness her wretched, living death state and deliver one final, brutal blow. Smack! The moment I stepped into my elder sister's room, father's fierce slap struck my face. The taste of blood flooded my mouth. Before I could even cover my swelling cheek, father spat out his curse. "Did I not order you to follow your elder sister everywhere?" His beloved daughter ruined, his eyes blazing crimson, his body trembling with rage. Seeing him so utterly devastated, as if mourning a death, filled me with satisfaction. When my mother died, I suffered far worse. Yet, tears welling in my eyes, I feigned innocence and replied weakly, "Elder sister." My elder sister said she had urgent matters to discuss with the third prince and forbade me from accompanying her. She sent away her wet nurse and nanny with various excuses, leaving only me behind. How could I dare to stop the young lady? As I spoke, I deliberately revealed the high, red, swollen handprint on my cheek. Of course, I had slapped myself there while changing clothes earlier. To be ruthless toward others, one must first be ruthless toward oneself. How could the Marquis not know his daughter's character? Yet he still looked down at me coldly. "Your elder sister has ruined herself. She has no future prospects. You see her state, she must not be spared lightly. Attendants. Your lordship." For the first time, I lifted my head before him. My elder sister ruined herself, so her marriage to the fourth prince is off. But I am also my father's daughter. The marriage between the Marquis's household and the fourth prince was never explicitly named as being for Yin Fangfei. What about me, Yin Yulv? The Marquis's hand trembled violently as he pointed at me. "Your sister suffers a fate worse than death, yet you rush to seize her marriage and future? Your cruelty proves you are indeed, as your elder sister claimed, a scourge that must not be spared." He roared, "Guards! Drag her out." So father intends to sacrifice the entire Marquis's household as her burial offering to express your filial devotion? Father stiffened, and I continued, "With the third prince suffering such calamity at the Marquis's residence, the household bears inescapable guilt. Especially since my elder sister was locked away with him in that desolate courtyard, carried away in disarray. How could she possibly have escaped? If I were father, rather than waiting for the emperor's wrath to destroy years of hard work, I would strike first, sacrificing one legitimate daughter to secure the safety of the entire marquisate. How dare you? I smiled, pointing at my elder sister wrapped like a rice dumpling on the bed. Shaking my head, I sighed. In her current state, father surely doesn't believe she still has a future filled with flowers and adoration awaiting her? Her reputation is ruined, her beauty destroyed. Even if father possessed divine powers, he couldn't alter Yun Fangfei's fate as a discarded pawn. With the emperor's wrath upon the marquisate, her future, and that of the entire household, hangs in the balance. Father clearly understood this. His fists clenched tightly, his brow furrowed, words failing him. I spoke each word solemnly, deliberately, rather than sitting idly awaiting judgment and slaughter. Why not strike first and seize a sliver of hope? If the third prince harbored ill intent toward my elder sister, locking her away in that desolate courtyard to abuse her, if that truly brought this calamity upon her and the marquis's household, then in father's view, might there still be a chance for the marquis's household to fight back? For the marquis's household to survive, father need only make a decisive, swift, and ruthless move before his majesty and all the city's officials, a move that burns the boats behind. Thus, we seize the moral high ground and the initiative. Public opinion is formidable, the imperial family would dare not act rashly, and the marquis's household might yet find a different fate. His pupils flinched, filled with horror, but if we do this, Fangfei will not survive. I shook my head. To protect the third prince's reputation, the empress will surely weep over the tragic love story of two star-crossed lovers, claiming their mutual affection was cruelly severed by the fourth prince's meddling. My elder sister's life will be spared, and the marquis's household will not only remain unscathed but also gain a marriage alliance. Your elder sister, having entered the fourth prince's residence only to be transferred to the third prince's, has ultimately gained what she desired. The marquis, ever the smooth operator, now trembled violently at my mere words. That is your sister. If the marquis's household sought a shady arrangement by stepping on the third prince, how could she possibly be safe once she entered his residence? I spread my hands helplessly and countered, but if the one burned alive had been me, what would father have done to preserve the marquisate's peace? Personal feelings are insignificant compared to the marquisate's century-old reputation and over 100 lives. Father is first and foremost the marquis of this house, the head of the Yin family, and then the father of my elder sister. Your daughter merely seeks to ease your burden. He understood. Stumbling step by step, he fled in disarray, having clearly made a heart-wrenching, bone-splitting decision. He too now knew the agony and regret of personally burying a loved one. When he watched my mother die, wasn't he perfectly composed? Only when this blade pierces precisely at the vital point will he feel the same agony I endured. The marquisate's future outweighs the heavens. In my past life, he let me die. In this life, he shall personally push his most beloved daughter into hell, condemning her to a fate worse than death. Seeing the trembling fingertips of my elder sister on the bed, I knew she could hear me. With a smile, I leaned close and whispered softly into her ear, "Hear that? It was father who chose the marquisate and his future, not you. Happy? Heaven and earth may shatter, but true lovers find their way, all thanks to father's generosity. What a pity! You always despised my mother's vulgar face, yet now you've lost yours entirely. Burning must hurt terribly, huh?" Her tightly wrapped body trembled in lingering terror. I shook my head with disdain, but every time you change the bandages, every time you look in the mirror, even every time you recall the adoration you once received, you'll suffer worse than death. A sister always has the capital to be capricious. Surely you can bear such consequences. Make sure to live long and relish every moment of your glittering remainder. After delivering that cutting remark, I left her future misery to the third prince, who'd soon be tearing others apart. Only then did I turn away with satisfaction. But on the corridor back to the courtyard, I ran into the fourth prince, Wei Chen. He waved the key to the abandoned courtyard I'd discarded, raising his eyebrows slightly as he threatened me. "The door's locked tight, your swimming skills are impressive, and your schemes are wickedly cunning. But what I admire most is your sense of timing. Though you're a clumsy bird, you know how to choose your perch. Oh. So you enjoy toying with people like a scorpion behind closed doors? Feeling rather pleased with yourself? Well, when my cruelty claims your worthless life, I hope you'll feel just as pleased." I urged father to burn his boats, crushing the third prince into the mud once and for all. Are you satisfied now? Can you return what belongs to me? Wei Chen fixed me with a piercing gaze before letting out a soft chuckle. He stepped slowly toward me, coming to a halt beside my side. Ignoring my attempts to dodge or retreat, he seized my earlobe with his icy fingertips and forcefully shoved the earring he'd taken back into my piercing. But deliberately missing the mark, he jabbed my ear over and over, piercing it clean through. You schemed against me without my consent. Seeing a little blood from you isn't too much, is it? I sucked in a sharp breath from the pain, but it seemed to please him. He only tightened his grip. Don't move. If it won't go in, I'll have no choice but to toss it into the abandoned courtyard and tell my dear imperial brother whose hand brought about his miserable state today. My hands clenched into fists, my lips bitten until they bled. I played along, letting him vent his rage. Only when he was completely lost in his own frenzy did my hand dart swiftly and precisely through his robe, gripping his groin. Gritting my teeth, I offered a wicked smile. You probably don't know me. Someone who crawled out of hell isn't afraid of death. As his body stiffened, I applied just a little pressure, and a deep, pained groan escaped his lips. I pressed my face against his pale cheek, my hot breath tickling him as I whispered, "You made me destroy the third prince." I coaxed father into doing it. In return, you owe me protection. So many hate the third prince, why not join forces? Is that too much to ask? Without protection, I'm as good as dead. If I die, so be it. But making you bury me with me? That's not a good deal. Rage crept into his brow, and the dagger hidden in his sleeve slid silently into his palm. Another one who wants me dead. I tightened my grip again. This time, the pain made him cry out. When you drew your blade, I could have crushed your glittering future. Do you believe me? With his life in my grasp, he feared both the pain and the shame of being seen. Panting, trembling, he wrapped his arms around my waist and leaned in close, his breath warm against my blood-soaked ear. What do you want? I'll return your earring and the key. From now on, we go our separate ways. No debts remain. I smiled with satisfaction, turned halfway, and bit down hard on his earlobe. Teeth ground against flesh until the air thickened with the taste of blood. With an innocent smile, I whispered softly, "You don't understand me. Even if I die in the next moment, in this moment, I demand blood for blood." Wei Chen trembled in agony, but his reflexive flinch was cut short by excruciating pain in his lower body, leaving him drenched in cold sweat. This wolf lurking behind my back knew everything about last night. Not only did he retrieve the key I threw away, but while I lay unconscious being carried back to my room, he stole my earring. He even threatened me, if he doesn't die, I'll make sure he lives in disgrace and misery. Otherwise, I'll toss these earrings into the fire and place the key in your father's study. That pent-up rage will find its outlet. Do you understand? By noon tomorrow, I want to see results. Yet Wei Chen seemed dissatisfied with my scheme to push my father into humiliating the third prince. For this rootless sparrow of mine dared to leap from the branch where my cuckolded sister perched, aiming to land on his lofty perch instead. A sparrow perches on a branch, a wild goose soars high, what wrong is there in that? Yet he refuses. Seeing father approaching from afar, I asked one last question. Perhaps I cannot offer you the future and happiness a noble lady of high birth could give. But with just a fraction of my effort, I can secure for you a future and happiness no one else could ever grant. The fourth prince is a clever man. Which will you choose? Perhaps my lip-biting, harmless gaze held too much resolve, or perhaps my casually wicked methods were too ruthless. In the end, he dared not gamble his lineage against a woman who cared not for her life. Swallowing his resentment, he yielded. I agree to welcome you into the mansion. Let go. Let go now. I swear, if a third person sees this, I'll make you wish you were dead. So stubborn? I squeezed his arm hard. As he yelped, I abruptly released him and took a step back, calling out, Father, the fourth prince is on his way to the study to see you. As Wei Chen brushed past me, his gaze was so dark and vicious it seemed he could devour a person. How could I not know? Both men were ruthless, but Wei Heng at least put on a gentle facade in public. He, however, didn't even bother to pretend. But I wasn't afraid. As he crossed the corridor and glanced back at me, I lifted my eyebrows, curling my lips into a cold smile. I casually waved the waist token I'd snatched from his left hand, silently mouthing the words, "We can die together." In that moment, his desire to kill me reached its peak. But I didn't care. I turned and walked back to the courtyard with light, quick steps. Just as he'd threatened me, if I tossed his identification token into the fire, it wouldn't matter whether he was the arsonist, the Empress would spare no effort to eradicate him completely. He was less composed than I. Having just discussed with father the arrangement to swap my elder sister's marriage for mine, he sought an excuse to approach me. But before his words could reach me, his icy hand was already there. Clamping down on my throat, he gritted his teeth and demanded, "Hand it over, or shall I search you and kill you afterward?" Struggling for breath, my cheeks flushed crimson, yet I giggled, laughed uncontrollably. Wei Chen's hand trembled as he stared at me like I was mad. He frantically began searching my body, my waist, sleeves, even my chest. "Where did you hide it?" My fingertips traced the pale back of his hand, stroke by stroke. Finally, as his hair stood on end and shock filled his eyes, I drove my knee hard into his groin, forcing him to release his grip. "Do you know why, despite your vicious schemes and ruthless methods, you've never bested Wei Heng, that man who always appears so respectable in public?" Clutching his sore groin, his face drained of color, he couldn't even bother to answer me. I laughed, "Because you're also stupid enough." Fuming, he was about to explode when I nonchalantly turned to pour him a cup of tea. If I were you, clutching something that makes people squirm, I wouldn't rush over to hand myself over. Let them exhaust themselves, go mad, yet never even touch the hem of your robe. "Oh, you're afraid things might change if you wait too long?" I forced a cup of tea into his hand. "I'm not afraid. Because I moved the thing the moment I could. I can die, but the thing won't. If it can't be used in the fire, can't it be used elsewhere? People die every day in the capital. Just find some innocent victim from the third prince's mansion to plant beside him. That's how you frame someone, isn't it?" Wei Chen understood. His identity token, delivered by me, now hung like a blade at his throat, a constant threat to his position and life. His knuckles whitened around the teacup. "I've already discussed it with your father. We'll expunge your maternal clan's crimes, grant your mother the status of co-wife, and permit you to enter my prince's residence as a secondary consort. But I want more than that." His eyes snapped up, cold and ruthless. "What more do you want?" I brushed imaginary dust from his shoulder and murmured, "I want to enter the imperial palace, above all others. Together with you." Crash! The teacup shattered on the floor. Wei Chen's eyes burned with murderous intent. "Who taught you this?" I sat down beside him without waiting for an answer and sighed. "You and I are alike. We were meant for greater things. Wei Heng has the Empress Dowager shielding him. Even when he openly humiliates you, your mother only urges you to endure. That's why he acts with such impunity. He took your elder sister. Will he not also take your place as the main consort? What if he wants your life? Endure? Endure until when? You hate him to death, so much you poured tung oil in that desolate courtyard to burn him alive, so much you sought to destroy his reputation through father's hand. Why not be bolder? Seize everything that should be yours. Once you sit upon that throne, who could stop you? Look at me, haven't I succeeded? As long as you're ruthless enough, as long as you're willing to risk everything, the eldest sister's marriage and you, both are mine now." Everything I know about Wei Chen comes from the disparaging remarks Wei Heng made while he and my elder sister were lost in passion. He called him a wolf lurking in the shadows, ferocious and cunning, waiting for his chance to strike, as if poised to pounce at any moment. But Wei Chen was a crippled wolf. All fury, no courage or resolve to fight back. Every ounce of his courage and resolve had been crushed and worn away by his useless mother. Back then, I thought to myself, so he is a wolf. If fate granted me the chance to marry him in my elder sister's place, I'd have plenty of ways to slowly tame the solitary, vicious beast, to make him fight fiercely for me. For instance, by being even more ruthless than him, more solitary than him, more inhuman and mad than him, until he stood shoulder to shoulder with me. Little did I know, this lifetime would truly unfold according to my scheme. Wei Chen fled in terror, overwhelmed by my madness. Watching his panicked retreat, I knew I'd succeeded halfway. Pulling his identification token from his thigh, I sneered with contempt. So what if he's supposedly cunning? A hollow shell who dares not act even under my watch, still dependent on me. Father cried foul, striking the imperial pillar in court, vowing to die for his beloved daughter's justice. That day, Wei Chen knelt outside the hall of mental cultivation, refusing to rise, swearing to annul his betrothal to the Marquis's household. Grandmother and the Empress Dowager were childhood sweethearts. Their marriage, arranged while still in their maiden chambers, had gone unfulfilled in the lives of the emperor and father. It must be consummated in our generation. Wei Chen, unwilling to ruin his legitimate elder sister's reputation and virtue, could only take me as his concubine. Yet the Great Chu had laws forbidding marriages between nobles and slaves. My aunt was a branded slave. Though she claimed to have seduced my father while drunk to protect me, she ultimately took the blame, threw herself into the river, and severed all ties with me. Yet within the Marquis's estate, my position remains precarious. Though the Marquis's daughter, I am also my elder sister's handmaiden. Even in marriage, finding a wealthy merchant with the Marquis's backing would be the best outcome. His Majesty clearly finds himself torn. It was at this moment that a long-lost, solitary volume of the sage's writings arrived from Qingling City. A poem within it matched word for word the cryptic verse that had led my maternal grandfather to harbor treasonous thoughts. My grandfather had hanged himself in prison, leaving a blood-stained letter crying innocence. Today, his name was finally cleared. My father possessed ample schemes and means, it was merely a matter of whether they were worth his effort. And so, with effortless ease, he granted me everything I had desperately sought in my past life. His Majesty resolved my urgent crisis with a grand gesture. He exonerated my grandfather and his 3 wrongfully executed companions. For my heroic act of risking my life to save the general's daughter, he granted me the title of county princess and betrothed me to the 4th prince as his principal consort. This offered my father immense reassurance, causing his closest confidants to abandon their plans to throw themselves to their deaths alongside him in the Golden Throne Hall. As I returned to the mansion in triumph, having gained every advantage, my now disgraced stepmother was raving hysterically. A teapot smashed violently at my feet. Her eyes bloodshot, she screamed like a madwoman, "You climbed to power by trampling my daughter's flesh? How dare you? You were the one who grew up with me. You were the one who begged relentlessly for my hand. You were the one who promised a lifetime of devotion. Yet it was you who betrayed me on your southern expedition, who built a home with that scholar's daughter in Qingling. From the very beginning, it was you who betrayed me, betrayed my love. How dare you now trample my daughter's flesh to climb to power and wealth?" Father paid a heavy price. He threw himself headfirst against the dragon-carved pillar, blood-staining his robes. The imperial physician watched for a full hour before he finally regained consciousness. Now, as he opened his eyes, the medicine bowl shattered, the tea bowl smashed, and even the screen by his bed was kicked to the floor, trampled into pieces. His eyes remained tightly shut. Guilt and pain choked him, leaving him unable to utter a single word. My stepmother, born into a distinguished family, has always looked down her nose at everyone, despising and scornfully dismissing all women of low birth. She constantly berated my concubine as a bed-stealing slut, utterly lacking in propriety and dignity. Yet now, hysterical and raving like a madwoman, where is her propriety and dignity? My unmasked sarcasm cut deep. She lunged forward, her hand slapping me hard across the face, knocking pins from my hair. "You slut! You're the one who urged him to steal Feng Fei's future. You! Why didn't you die with your mother? I shouldn't have spared you." I chuckled softly. "Instead of blaming me for stealing your elder sister's future in marriage, you should blame yourself. You poured all your energy into watching the women around father." Every extra word he spoke, every bit of closeness he showed, even a maid lingering half a step longer while serving tea, nothing escaped your watchful eye. But in all that time, did you ever teach your daughter propriety and decorum? Had you not turned a blind eye, had you not praised her for being perfect in every way, had you not indulged her arrogance and lawlessness, would she have met this end today? Truth be told, you are unfit to be the mistress of this household. Your eyes were fixed only on father, blind to the survival of the Marquisate, oblivious to the rise and fall of our clan, devoid of any far-sighted strategy. You destroyed her. You. Her body swayed, yet she abruptly lifted her head. "Don't try to confuse me. You're just like that whore of a mother of yours, a master at manipulating hearts. She stole the Marquis's heart, now you want to steal mine? I won't let you and your daughter destroy me and then destroy my daughter too. I'll kill you. She yanked out her hairpin, suddenly lunging at me. I saw grandmother's figure and, ignoring father's startled cry, threw myself straight into the path of her hairpin. She hadn't fully prepared. An unpolished hairpin, barely capable of drawing blood, let alone taking a life. Yet I still screamed before grandmother, collapsing to the floor in tears, "Grandmother, save me. Yuli is so scared." To grandmother, the rise and fall of the Marquis's household mattered more than anything. She'd gone to the Empress Dowager with a bold face to demand the marriage be honored, all to elevate the Marquis's house even higher. Even if Yin Fangfei were disgraced, she'd never abandon this marriage to the fourth prince. Now that I've gained the title of county princess and become the fourth prince's principal consort, it couldn't be better for her. Seeing me curled on the ground, pleading for help with pitiful, tear-filled eyes, whether to save face by doing me a favor or to vent her resentment toward her stepmother, she roared without hesitation, "The mistress has acted unethically. Take her to the ancestral hall to reflect on her transgressions before our forebears." Father struggled to intercede, but I wailed, "Grandmother, you are so noble. If word of this reaches His Majesty, he might think the Marquis's household harbors resentment toward him." These were turbulent times, the Marquis's household could not afford any further mishaps due to mother's madness. Father's lips trembled, but he swallowed the words he wanted to say. After my mother was confined to the ancestral hall, I rushed to share this good news with my dear elder sister. She lay in bed, her very breath a torment, her existence worse than death. Beneath thick bandages, her face was utterly disfigured. Yet she still dreamed of rising above others, pinning her hopes on the third prince to destroy me completely. I laughed at her foolishness. "You think innocence speaks for itself? But you know not the power of rumor. After today, the whole world will know Wei Heng defiled you in that desolate courtyard. Father threatened suicide to secure your marriage as the third prince's secondary consort. If you die, it will be the imperial family silencing you. If you live, you will be Wei Heng's eternal stain and disgrace." The empress, caught between a rock and a hard place, swallowed her disgust to take you, yet she would have devoured your flesh and drunk your blood. The third prince, betrayed and enraged, gnashed his teeth, vowing to flay you alive and grant you a death worse than death. Rely on him? Ridiculous! When you were whole, he refused to sully his reputation by claiming you. Now, in this state, how could he possibly spare you a glance? Father has already chosen the fourth prince, Wei Chen. Do you truly believe you still have a chance to kill the fourth prince's principal consort? Instead of wasting time on such daydreams, you'd be better off visiting your raving mad mother in the ancestral hall. Perhaps each visit brings her one step closer to her end. Oh, right, since you've lost all dignity, you might as well not go. Save your mother the shock of seeing a ghost in broad daylight and scaring herself to death. Yun Fangfei trembled with rage, yet her pain-twisted movements as she tried to strike me resembled the writhing of a giant silkworm. Recalling how she once made me kneel beside a dog to compare our loyalty, I mocked her mercilessly. "How disgusting. You look like a writhing maggot now. Seeing this ghastly form of yours would probably make even Wei Heng vomit." I watched him crumble, witnessed her impotent rage, saw her wounds tear open, blood streaming down. Only after she endured the agony of having the bandages ripped off and fresh medicine applied did I leave with a smile. Wei Chen was waiting for me. He extended his long fingers toward me. "I gave you everything you wanted. What about what I want?" I shamelessly clasped his hand. "What's the rush? You already have me. Do you think the things will fly away?" He was speechless. Through countless training sessions, I was bitten and pounced upon by the wolf. Eventually, he grew much more docile, no longer baring his teeth at me. My mother, fearing complications, pleaded with the emperor to hold the wedding before the Laba festival. I nodded, smiling sweetly. "I'll embroider my wedding gown carefully, waiting for you to come and marry me." He was utterly speechless. With my wedding approaching, the household was in a flurry of activity, leaving me overwhelmed. I knew the time had come. During the shopping, I spent a fortune using Wei Chen's pass to demand some extraordinary medicines. Though worth a fortune and hard to come by, I spent the emperor's bounty willingly, seeking my own comfort and joy. Good things are meant to be shared, after all. Upon returning to the estate, I sent them to the ancestral hall as an offering to my stepmother. The moment she saw me, she went mad, nearly smashing me to death with the ancestral tablets. Yet I stood unmoved, gazing down at her with cold laughter as she grew ever more haggard and aged. You simply cannot compare to my mother, in beauty, temperament, or talent. You fall far short. It was likely precisely because of this that father fell head over heels at first sight. He kept it secret from you in the capital, married mother in Qingling City, and built a small home together. Yun. At dusk in the courtyard, crows cawed among the willows. I remember that person, plucking pear blossoms under the moonlight. In the courtyard of my memories, there stood a grand pear tree. Have you ever seen it? These few words seemed to strike a nerve in this aristocratic lady. Pointing at me, she erupted in a torrent of abuse. You wretched woman. You're just as vile and shameless as she was. So what? No matter how cunning she was, she still met a miserable end. A bunch of lowly villagers and commoners, daring to compare themselves to me, the legitimate daughter of 3 generations of civil officials? She deserved to be thrown into a brothel to rot away. My hand trembled beneath my sleeve, yet my face remained impassive as I shook my head disapprovingly. Don't try to use my own tactics against me, I said calmly. After all, I speak only truth, while your lies cannot pierce me. Her laughter grew more triumphant, louder and louder, until she finally looked at me as if I were a joke, smugly declaring, "Your mother atoned for her sins by dying, abandoning you at the Marquis's gate." Under the watchful eyes of all, the Marquis's household couldn't deny responsibility. They had to free you from servitude, granting you peace, even elevating you to a life of wealth and privilege as a Marquise's daughter. Such humiliation fell upon me. I seethed with hatred, craving to devour her flesh and drink her blood. How could I let her die peacefully? But it only took a handful of silver to hire a few water-savvy men to risk their lives and rescue her. She was back in a mere stick of incense. I personally sold her to the most wretched brothel in Yenmen Commandery, where she became a worthless whore, a cheap piece of trash for bandit henchmen to trample and abuse for a few copper coins. She loved seducing men, didn't she? Let her die in a man's bed, she got her wish. She looked at me with triumphant satisfaction, so the world was right after all. You are the vile scum of a rotten life. Your mother was a whore ridden by thousands. The truth I begged for until my death in my past life. Today, I finally know it. So Yin Fangfei always cursed my mother as a whore ridden by thousands. My stepmother always sneered that she got what she deserved, while father remained silent, yet carried a sliver of guilt, leaving me a sliver of hope. They all knew of mother's tragic death. My tears seemed to please her. She straightened her back, just as she did when Yin Fangfei and she oppressed me, lifting her hair high as she declared, "What kind of status does she have to even think of competing with me? Your father even intended to bring her back to the mansion as a concubine. When he swore to be with only one woman for life, I was the most dazzling noble lady in the capital, the object of everyone's envy. How could she be allowed to drag me into the mud in a single day?" A cruel smile curled her lips. My father merely journeyed south once, and with a literary inquisition, he erased her existence entirely. Her delusions dragged dozens to their deaths. Therefore, she deserved to die, to suffer worse than death. And you. Before she could finish, I could bear it no longer. Unexpected punches rained down on her abdomen. As she gasped in pain, I seized her jaw and forced the pills down her throat. Then I covered her mouth. Only when she was unable to break free and swallowed it in terror did I release her. She gagged, screamed shrilly, and raged, but I paid her no mind. Only when her cheeks flushed crimson did I curve my lips and say, "Treating you the way you treated my mother, you should be able to handle it, shouldn't you? Besides, your dear husband never once mentioned his family back in the capital. He deceived my mother, yet you couldn't bring yourself to kill him. Instead, you murdered a woman who, like you, had been hurt and betrayed by men. That's why you're truly weak and useless. I'll make you repay everything you took from my mother." Her pupils flinched as my hand blade sliced cleanly across the back of her neck. Then, smiling, I pushed open the door. The 2 watchdogs of my stepmother, the one I just gifted a box of pastries, were fidgeting restlessly, scratching their ears and cheeks. I chuckled. "Mother says you may enter." She has matters to discuss. Though slightly bewildered, they pushed their way inside, half convinced. The next instant, I slammed the door shut and locked it. They pounded on the door, shouting, but I paid them no mind. It was thanks to the home mansion's chaotic state and my stepmother's contempt for my lowly, submissive demeanor that I found so many opportunities to exploit. Until the sounds gradually faded, replaced by the sound of heavy breathing. Later, they discovered the legitimate mother lying on the floor, her robe half open. The drug's effects overpowered reason. When the sound of silk tearing echoed, I unlocked the door. The wooden door swung open halfway, and without a backward glance, I left the courtyard. It was time to give her a fate worse than death, one that would ruin her reputation and make her wish she were dead. Father was indeed standing quietly under the eaves. Seeing the swelling on my cheeks, he understood. She's been spoiled since childhood, always getting her way, never tolerating injustice. You've given her her revenge and vented your anger. Don't trouble her anymore. If I could elevate you to that position, I can certainly bring you down. One must look forward. You're a clever person, you should know that mutual support is the key to lasting success. I concealed the chill in my eyes and obediently agreed. Then I deliberately added, Mother discovered the pastries were from Father and threw them all to the guards. I'm afraid I'll go hungry tonight. Racked with guilt, Father dismissed me and personally wrapped a bag of his stepmother's favorite pastries to take to the ancestral hall. But what awaited him was nothing but a storm. Sure enough. Within the span of a single incense stick, chaos erupted in the ancestral hall. 2 guards, who had always bullied others under the protection of the legitimate mother, were dragged out by the Marquis and beaten to death with clubs. The legitimate mother, overcome by grief and worry, fainted and was sent to the estate that very night to recuperate. Rumor had it the stepmother was beaten unconscious by his father's own hand, her cheeks swollen, teeth knocked loose, even a thigh bone shattered from a brutal kick. A man could betray anyone, yet when betrayed in kind, he could endure not a single shred of it. What of childhood sweethearts? What of undying devotion? What of lifelong companionship? In the end, none could outweigh his own dignity and pride. When that lowly scribe begged at the estate gates, he refused to endure 30 lashes. He refused to be entangled with that wretch, becoming a laughingstock among his peers. He let his stepmother hurl filth upon my mother instead. That he seduced her while drunk to bear this bitter fruit. It was he who courted her beneath the moonlight, begging her to bear him a son. His wife and child gone, the Marquis, now middle-aged, could scarcely bear such agony. His hair turned white overnight. When he regained his composure, suspicion fell upon me. He summoned a trusted physician that very night to examine me. Yet nothing was found. True to its priceless value, the antidote placed in the incense burner neutralized the poison within moments, leaving not a trace. With Father gravely ill and confined indoors, Grandmother entrusted the household affairs to me. I spared no effort, adding another concoction to Yun Fangfei's flesh-growing potion. This new potion caused nothing but excruciating, bone-piercing itch. Yun Fangfei was covered in wounds, scratching and clawing at her skin. The intertwined itch and pain were unbearable. Hearing her wail and curse over and over, she finally blurted out, "Wei Hang, I hate you. If you hadn't pushed me to shield you from the flames, I wouldn't be suffering like this." At that very moment, Wei Heng arrived at the estate on official business. As I had anticipated, with her reputation already ruined, the Empress Dowager, seeking to salvage Wei Heng's dignity, could only claim the two were deeply in love. Yet, bound by strict family rules, their longing had driven them to meet secretly in the deserted courtyard to admire the moon together. Such lofty words might deceive some, but Father's silence, no more hysterical outbursts, amounted to tacit approval. Only when the imperial decree of marriage arrived, and Father accepted it with apparent joy, did the murmurs of the masses largely subside. For appearance's sake, the third prince, consumed by longing for Yun Fangfei, rushed to see her the moment his wounds healed. Hatred surged like a tidal wave within Wei Hang's heart. He remembered the Empress's admonition, even if she were a hideous monster, he must endure the revulsion, carry her back to the mansion, and either lock her away or dispose of her. Before others, he must maintain the appearance of deep affection. Wei Heng wore a half-mask to conceal his burns. When he forced a stiff smile, he looked terrifying and horrifying. When his eyes met Yin Fangfei's, who lay on the bed, itching unbearably and tearing off her bandages, both let out earth-shattering screams. Before I could speak, Wei Chen launched into his vengeance with relentless fury. Old lovers reuniting with heightened passion? Well, my royal brother hadn't seen Miss Yun in 3 months. A day apart feels like 3 autumns, such feelings are hard to contain. Why not let them catch up properly? I'll shut the door for you. Ignoring Wei Hang's panic, he slammed the door shut with a click. He remarked coldly, 2 ugly creatures meeting each other, how intensely they envy one another. Tell me, who will crack first? Barely a cup of tea later, the third Prince Wei Hang finally couldn't hold it in. He burst through the door and vomited violently. She stinks. Ugly and stinky. How could you stand it? Oh, it itches so badly. Scratched the flesh raw, so it rotted and stinks now. It's all my fault for being careless. I should have called the imperial physician to remove the rotten flesh. After all, in my past life, even after I died, she still found me ugly and disgusting. She wouldn't let me rest in peace, ordering my body dumped in a mass grave to feed the dogs. Such kindness from her, I'll repay it to the fullest. Wei Chen exchanged a glance with me and said coolly, after you and Brother Wei indulged in deathly passion with her, didn't you tell me that nothing is more fragrant than a maiden's body? You said I lacked fortune, but now you can't even enjoy that fortune yourself. Though Wei Hang seethed with resentment, he had already incurred the emperor's loathing and dared not act recklessly anymore. He shot Wei Chen a fierce warning glance before flinging his sleeves and striding away. Wei Chen, who always avoided confrontation, tasted the exhilaration of a direct victory for the first time. A smile he couldn't suppress touched his lips, utterly satisfying. He softened considerably toward me as well. I must admit, you're a rather good ally. Keep yourself in check, and I won't take your life lightly. I nodded indifferently, right. Keep your head down, and you might live a little longer. The wedding day arrived in the blink of an eye. As the grand red bridal sedan carried me out the front gate, a small sedan quietly transported my elder sister to the third prince's residence. From this moment onward, she was imprisoned in a cage, her existence worse than death. From my lofty perch, I would learn to mock her misery, treating her suffering as an appetizer to my wine. Wei Chen and I were merely wolves traveling together, a partnership of convenience. He never desired me. I knew this. So I laced the wedding wine with a potion. After he drank it, he collapsed onto the bed, unable to move a limb. Leaning close, I murmured with a smile, not touching me on our wedding night? How embarrassing. Truth be told, you're quite handsome. I've coveted you for a long time. Now, let our enjoyment begin. He seethed with hatred, yet his body betrayed him. Though inexperienced, I labored tirelessly, manipulating him in every position. The medicine I'd taken for 3 months beforehand had to hit the mark perfectly. The next morning, before I'd even woken, Wei Chen's sword was pressed against my throat. I yawned at him. What? Uncomfortable? Why didn't you say so? Your limbs were limp, but your tongue wasn't tied. Kissing you felt just fine, didn't it? He flushed with shame and fury, cursing me shameless. I rolled away from the blade's edge. Are you planning to kill me and deliver the evidence to the Empress? If not, then why all this pretense? We're husband and wife. If you won't use me, do you want me to make you explode? I pretended to peer at his crotch, looking utterly shameless. Wei Chen's defenses crumbled completely. He slammed his sword onto the ground and didn't return to the main courtyard for a long time. I was quite content with the peace, biding my time for my stubborn wound to turn the tables. I kindly visited my elder sister, but she showed no gratitude. Her thin robe covered her face, eyes fixed on me like a predator. You came to mock me? Her hands clenched tightly beneath her sleeves, yet couldn't hide the bruised marks on her neck. I had long known the truth. Shackled by chains around her neck, she was treated like a dog by Wei Hang and Li Yueying, humiliated, beaten, and toyed with. I told Li Yueying that Yin Fangfei had pushed her into the water, desperate to hide their illicit affair. That empty-headed fool, who was nothing but Yin Fangfei's murderous blade, believed me instantly. After all, if I intended to kill her, I wouldn't have saved her. This logic convinced her completely. Wei Heng found her utterly repulsive and refused to deal with her, so Li Yueying took over. Those trivial punishments her elder sisters once inflicted upon me were now meted out to her one by her closest confidant. Clearly, the taste was bitter. She even begged me, the person she despised most, "You've had your fill of mockery. For the sake of being fellow Yin family daughters, could you send word to the estate? Tell mother I miss her." The moment her words fell, my eyes widened in shock. "You didn't know?" The very next day after being sent to the estate, her mother had her wet nurse take her place in confinement while she herself escaped, fleeing back to the capital to make my life a living hell. But as luck would have it, my men were already waiting along the way. They promptly delivered her to Yanmen Commandery. On that bed where my mother rotted away, her mother, who always thought herself superior, lay for over half a year. Every single humiliation and torment my mother endured, I doubled back on her. Those with power and influence find everything so much easier. Unlike my former self, who was beaten until my lips bled just for asking for a cold steamed bun. But I didn't say that to Yun Fangfei. How could father tolerate a woman who cheated on him, bringing such shame upon him? They said she was sent to the estate, but who knows where she truly ended up. You're far too naive. He professes to love you most, yet he sent you here to suffer humiliation. The only ones he loves are himself and the Marquis's future prospects. I hear grandmother bought 2 women with legal status. Presumably, she intends to have them undergo facial mutilation and present them to father, to bear sons and expand the Marquis's lineage. Yun Fangfei recoiled in horror, her body swaying until she collapsed onto the floor. I turned with a smile, pretending to casually let a hairpin slip from my temple. This pin was no ordinary one like my stepmother's. I'd sharpened it to a razor's edge and even soaked it in poison. 1 strike, 1 death, no problem at all. This time, Yin Fangfei's life was in my hands. I am a magnanimous woman. Though consort Shu, harboring resentment toward me, kept sending women to Wei Chen's residence one after another, I accepted them all without complaint. Not only did I feel no jealousy, but I ensured each was provided with sumptuous food and fine clothing. Wei Chen couldn't fathom my actions. "What scheme are you plotting now?" I shook my head. "You and I are one in marriage. If trouble arises within the inner courtyard, it will only ruin your future." Her eyes held only your father's love, blind to planning for you. "I love you so deeply, I cannot stand idly by. A few women? I feel no jealousy." What kind of man is Wei Chen? Heartless and ruthless, utterly selfish. To expect love from him? That would be more naive than Yun Fangfei herself. Just feigning affection, soothing his starved heart. He snorted contemptuously. Wei Heng crafted a mask of human skin. Once worn, his face would return to normal. My hand paused mid-pour. So what? Giving a dead man a fine face will bring him back to life? Wei Heng frowned. You want me to kill him? I pouted and shook my head slowly. I have another candidate. He scoffed. If you want to court death, don't drag me into it. But within half a month, his laughter would fade. Late one night, Yin Fangfei plunged a hairpin into Wei Heng's heart. After strangling Li Yueying, who had been caged with dogs, she fled back to the mansion. Seeing the blood-stained hem of her robe, her father understood everything. Trembling, he ordered her to face punishment in the palace. Yin Fangfei finally believed my words from that day. Father's eyes held only him and the Marquis's estate's future. Nothing more. She laughed wildly, tears streaking down her cheeks. Father staggered, grabbing her hand, pleading with emotion and reason, offering the lives of everyone in the Marquis's estate to persuade her. But precisely these words became the final straw that broke the camel's back. "Father, you truly would rather see me die than secretly send me out of the city?" As father choked on his words, Yin Fangfei's hairpin, laden with hatred, finally pierced the chest of the father she had most revered. "Let's go find mother together. You must apologize to her. You destroyed us, you owe her an apology." Father couldn't believe it, his beloved daughter had taken his life. He knew full well about my stepmother's plot to kill my mother, yet he pretended deafness and blindness. I saw him as the chief culprit. How could I let him live? After shattering his family and tearing his heart apart, he deserved to pay with his life. And dying by the hand of his beloved daughter was a fitting end. Knowing death was inevitable, Yunfeng Fei plunged her final hairpin into her own throat. Blood stained her robes as she breathed her last. The Empress's wrath led to the entire Marquis' household being imprisoned. As for me, having already become the fourth prince's consort and a member of the imperial family, and being completely unaware of the plot, I escaped punishment. Watching them being hauled away in prison carts, I smiled, hidden among the crowd. This time around, it was you, the treacherous, heartless ones who twisted truth into lies, who met your end. When the news reached Wei Chen, shock and joy left him speechless for a long while. The emperor had 3 sons, Wei Heng, Wei Chen, and the 5th prince, who was only 3 years old. Plotted against by the empress, he had been thrown into the water, leaving him frail and weak, utterly incapable of competing. What he dared not vie for was now delivered to his very hands. When the empress bled from her mouth, fainted, and fell gravely ill, I too collapsed in the corridor. The imperial physician diagnosed me with a 3-month pregnancy. This was the sole piece of good news the emperor received since the 3rd prince was burned. From then on, the 4th prince, once unloved by his majesty, became a frequent visitor to the hall of cultivating the heart. As the legitimate wife of a prince, a bright future lay ahead of me. My biological mother in the dungeon refused to believe it. Disheveled, filthy, and emaciated, she screamed at me like a specter, "Wei Chen is ruthless. You'll die by his hands sooner or later." I laughed. Would someone who ensured you couldn't even die together be so kind as to sew a wedding gown for another? She couldn't comprehend it. I merely smiled without reply. Upon learning I was with child, she used a bowl of soup to make Wei Chen incapable of fathering heirs. The child within me would be his only blood. You want me dead? Then you'll have to wait until he's firmly seated in the Eastern Palace. Watching the new concubine I'd brought into the mansion, I curved my lips. I'm not like you. Why should women torment other women? Every woman in this prince's mansion owes me a debt of gratitude, becoming my sharpest weapon. Once he's firmly seated in the Eastern Palace, his death won't be far off. What is there left for me to fear? This lifetime, I'll make you witness how the daughter of the lowly woman you despised rises from the brink of death, ascends to new heights, and gazes far into the distance. A sparrow soaring to the highest branch, it's always about claiming the top spot. This lifetime, I'll fight and seize it all. The end.